So the Caitlin Clark thing has taken over. The Caitlin Clark hashtag has absolutely taken over. And if we're being real, the Caitlin Clark hashtag is killing it. They are absolutely it's killing it. That from anywhere hashtag.
Unrivaled just decided to market their league using Caitlin Clark's image. Yes, that Caitlin Clark, the one who passed on their league and committed to the WNBA instead, the very same player they're now competing with for attention, ratings, and relevance. And somehow they're borrowing Nike's From Anywhere campaign, plastering the CC22 logo across their content like it belongs to them. In the process, they're turning their own athletes into free advertising for a superstar who politely declined their offer. The confidence it takes to do that? Almost admirable. But this is where things start to get really interesting.
Nike have done a really good job of this. And if you guys haven't seen, the Unrivaled Breeze team, a team that has Paige Beckers on it, is promoting the hashtag.
So what's your take on this? Smart strategy or pure desperation? Either way, we need to break down what really happened here, because this whole situation runs a lot deeper than it seems at first glance.
Breeze Basketball Club. Breeze can pull up from anywhere. They can pull up from anywhere. And it was like Cam Brink is obviously hitting the shot. So you see from
Breeze Basketball Club, one of the teams under the Unrivaled umbrella, shared a post using the From Anywhere hashtag, the Nike campaign that's basically synonymous with Caitlin Clark at this point. The clip shows Cam Brink knocking down shots with the CC22 logo front and center. The caption, From Anywhere, layered with as much Nike branding as could possibly fit into a single post. And before anyone rushes to point it out, yes, I'm fully aware that Cam Brink and Kate Martin are on that roster. I know they're close with Caitlin, but when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, that context doesn't make this move any less strange.
Caitlin Clark shooting a Nike commercial outside. That's a funny one. But yeah, that it is one of those things that someone said Nike does people to post there From Anywhere skills plus Kate Martin and Cameron Brink are Caitlin's friends, so no harm here. Just think we're just sensitive for no reason. I don't. Paige Becker's Nike logo and Nike stuff so bad they gotta start stealing Caitlin's stuff. I'm sorry, that Paige Becker's book logo is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Unrivaled spent months chasing Caitlin Clark. They waved big money in front of her. They dangled ownership stakes. They even framed their entire pitch around becoming the destination where NBA and WNBA stars would spend their off seasons. And Caitlin looked at all of it and politely declined. She chose recovery over their paychecks. She chose the WNBA over their grand experiment. She walked away, clearly and intentionally. Fast forward to now, and that same league is turning around and using her image, her branding, and her cultural momentum to sell their own product. The level of mental gymnastics needed to justify that is truly elite. It's like an ex suddenly flooding their feed with photos from your favorite vacation spots after you broke up. Except in this case, the X is a basketball league, and you're the biggest star in women's basketball who very clearly said, I'm not interested. That's essentially what we're watching unfold right now.
If she's happy with the logo, be happy with the logo. But it looks like a bottle opener. It looks like a bottle opener. Just like Paige Becker's logo has infinite meme potential, because all she has to do is have one bad game and it becomes a trash can logo. It becomes a trash can logo once she has one bad game. But yeah, look, it is one of those things now where this entire Caitlin Clark From Anywhere thing, this From Anywhere thing that they're pushing, is doing a lot of good stuff. It's a major positive for kind of everybody involved, because you're now looking at a situation where it's like, okay, we're talking about, From Anywhere, shooting from deep, which is clearly something that Caitlin Clark does.
Now let's deal with the obvious truth everyone's dancing around. Nike engineered this entire moment. The From Anywhere campaign wasn't some random hashtag that magically took off. This was a full-scale corporate push. Nike activated its athletes. They lined up paid partnerships. They flooded social feeds. And they successfully turned Caitlin Clark's CC22 logo into a cultural signal. And honestly, credit where it's due. That's elite branding. But this is exactly where things start to unravel for Unrivaled. When Breeze Basketball Club posts that content, they're not just hyping their roster. They're actively amplifying the brand of a player who doesn't play in their league. They're effectively telling their audience, check out this awesome thing tied to someone who chose not to be here. Every CC22 logo that flashes across their page reinforces one idea, Caitlin Clark. And what it doesn't reinforce is Unrivaled's actual pitch. What makes their league special, different, or worth choosing. That's not clever marketing. That's self-inflicted damage disguised as solidarity. Yes, Kate Martin and Cam Brink are Caitlin's friends. Yes, players supporting players is normal and healthy, but this wasn't a personal Instagram story. It was an official team account. Someone approved that post. Someone thought this was a good look. And when you zoom out even a little, the optics are brutal. Unrivaled is a startup league fighting for relevance against the WNBA. They need to define themselves. They need fans to associate their brand with their stars. They need to be seen as the destination, not as the league that couldn't land Caitlin Clark. And yet here they are using her branding to market themselves. That's not confidence. That's insecurity wrapped in a friendship bracelet. It gets even messier when you factor in Caitlin Clark's complicated relationship with the WNBA itself. There's already tension around how much attention she receives compared to other players. The league has wrestled with accusations of being too Caitlyn-centric, so now imagine a rival league, one positioning itself as the alternative, leaning on that same star's image for relevance. How exactly is that supposed to work? Unrivaled claims to be different, more player-focused, more progressive, a new model, but in practice, they're piggybacking on the WNBA's biggest draw to stay visible. That's not disruption. That's dependency. Now, to be clear, Nike deserves serious praise here. They built a campaign so strong that even competing leagues feel compelled to use it. That's the power of great branding. From Anywhere worked because it distilled something real about Caitlin's game. Those deep threes, that limitless range, that audacity. Nike packaged it perfectly and sold it to the world. And now everyone wants in, even organizations she explicitly declined to join. But let's also be honest about the campaign's performance. If you actually dig into TikTok, most From Anywhere content is sponsored. Nike paid creators, they paid athletes, they paid influencers. Yes, there's organic content, but the paid to organic ratio tells the real story. This wasn't some grassroots movement. It was a heavily funded marketing rollout that worked, just not flawlessly. Instagram performed better, likely because Nike's audience there is primed for athlete branding. TikTok, less explosive. Organic virality matters more there, and the campaign didn't fully dominate the way Nike probably hoped. That doesn't mean it failed. It didn't, but it does mean this wasn't an unstoppable cultural wave. It was a successful corporate campaign, which brings us right back to Unrivaled. By using that hashtag and that logo, they're not just promoting Caitlin Clark, they're actively helping Nike grow a campaign centered on a player who turned them down. Every post builds her brand equity while giving Unrivaled almost nothing in return beyond vague goodwill. Some people will say this is all overblown. They'll argue it's just friends supporting friends. And at the individual level, that's absolutely fair. Players should uplift each other. But again, this wasn't individual. This was institutional, a league decision, a branding choice. And from a strategic standpoint, it's shaky at best. Think about it this way. When Sabrina Ionescu's shoes were flying off shelves, did other leagues promote them to market their own competitions? Did international leagues slap her branding on their content? Of course not. That would be absurd. You promote your stars. You build your ecosystem, unless you're Unrivaled. And then there's the Paige Buckers factor. Paige is actually part of Unrivaled. She's one of their centerpiece players. While her relationship with Caitlin isn't hostile, unlike the Caitlin and Angel Reese dynamic, there's undeniable competitive tension. They're rivals in the truest sense. So what message does it send when Unrivaled boosts Caitlin's brand instead of Paige's? What does it say to their other Players? Whether intentional or not, the message is clear. We still wish Caitlin Clark were here. No amount of "we're all friends" rhetoric changes that reality. Unrivaled had a choice: invest in their own identity or amplify someone else's. They chose the latter, and in doing so, they told the world exactly where their priorities and insecurities really lie. The timing is what really makes this whole thing sting. Unrivaled is brand new. This is their opening chapter. They're supposed to be building trust, legitimacy, and momentum. They need fans to believe they're a real alternative to the WNBA, that they offer something distinct, meaningful, and worth paying attention to. And instead of doubling down on that, they're out here amplifying the WNBA's biggest star. That's not how you build a rival brand. That's how you quietly accept a supporting role in someone else's storyline. What makes this even more frustrating is that Unrivaled didn't lack material. They actually had everything they needed to create strong, original content. Talented players, a different league format, serious financial backing, a narrative centered on player empowerment and off-season opportunity. That's a solid foundation, but rather than leaning into any of that, they chose the easy route, riding the momentum of Caitlin Clark's Nike campaign. Best case scenario? That's lazy. Worst case? It's a complete misunderstanding of brand strategy. The From Anywhere campaign works for Caitlin because it's real. It's a perfect match for her game. She genuinely pulls up from anywhere on the floor. That's her calling card. But once every team and every league starts using it, the message loses power. It turns into just another trending tag instead of something meaningful. And that's exactly what happened here. Unrivaled saw something hot and jumped on it without stopping to ask what that move says about them. So let's talk about what they should have done. They should have launched their own campaign. They should have highlighted what separates Unrivaled from the WNBA. They should have spotlighted the players who actually committed to their vision. They should have invested in building an identity that stands on its own. That's basic marketing. You don't advertise your competition, directly or indirectly, even if it's wrapped in friendliness, even if the vibes seem positive. The irony here is thick. Unrivaled sold itself as the league that does things differently. Better pay, equity for players, more respect, a new model altogether, and then they turn around and use the WNBA's biggest star to market themselves. That's not differentiation, that's an admission that they still need WNBA credibility to matter, an admission that they still need Caitlin Clark, even though she clearly didn't need them. And before anyone says Nike probably coordinated this, that actually makes it worse. Because that means Unrivaled looked at the situation and said, sure, we'll help promote the player who turned us down because Nike asked. That's not partnership, that's being used as a distribution channel for someone else's client. From a competitive standpoint, this is especially puzzling. Unrivaled is fighting for attention during the WNBA offseason. They need fans watching their games instead of counting down the days until the WNBA tips off again. But every time they boost Caitlin Clark's brand, they're reminding people of one simple fact: the biggest star in women's basketball plays somewhere else. They're actively undercutting their own positioning for the sake of vague goodwill. Look at how established leagues operate. When the WNBA promotes players, they promote WNBA players. Their campaigns center their own talent. They don't elevate stars from competing leagues because that would make zero strategic sense. Yet somehow, Unrivaled missed that entirely. They turned their own teams into rolling Caitlin Clark advertisements. Now, to be fair, this probably won't destroy them overnight. Most people won't analyze it deeply. They'll see Cam Brink hitting a shot with the CC22 logo and think, nice, friends supporting friends. They won't consider what it means for a league to promote the brand of someone who doesn't play there. They won't think about the message it sends internally to the players who did say yes. But the fact that most people won't notice doesn't make the decision smart. This whole episode is a textbook example of what not to do when you're building a challenger brand. You don't validate your competition. You don't advertise their stars. You don't constantly remind fans of what you failed to secure. You focus on your strengths. You tell your own story. You create your own moments. With this one move, Unrivaled did the opposite. So here we are. Unrivaled just showed they're willing to promote almost anyone's brand except their own. Caitlin Clark is somewhere cashing Nike checks, completely unbothered, and Unrivaled is left wondering why the spotlight keeps drifting away from their actual league. If this is the blueprint, they're going to need more than off-season talent to stay relevant. And if you don't want to miss moments like this, when leagues accidentally roast themselves, make sure to like and subscribe.